to the next episode of Novel Podcast, this time in a bit different area. We are in the UK with the one and only Gavin at the paint shop. One of the best garages in the UK in regards of refinishing the vintage old cars or any other cars in the UK. Gavin, the first question. How does it start? How did you become a spray painter? If you could tell us a bit story about yourself up at the garage, about where we are.
Okay, so originally, my background was really mechanical when I was a youngster. My dad and his friend used to race a racing car and I was always around their cars. So that's where the passion for cars come from. So I worked for a guy just doing mechanical work on his crash damaged cars. And one day he couldn't get to the workshop and he asked me to paint a car for him. And I really, had not much of a clue what was going on, but I'd done it and it sort of was all right. And I really fell in love with that side of cars, Still done mechanical for quite a long time. But then I just obviously got into the paint work. I had my own garage for a little while, and started doing a few bits and pieces. And I thought I was quite good at it, to be honest.
You remember your first project, like apart from your dad's car?
A Volkswagen Beetle.
Oh, there we go.
A Volkswagen Beetle. So we cut the roof off and turned it into a convertible with a lot of smoothed off panels, glass fibre. It was in a really nice sort of metallic blue. And it turned into a bit of a work of art, really.
Well, that was a commercial side, or did you do it for some client, or did you do it for yourself?
Well, a friend of mine was doing it for somebody, and he couldn't cope with doing it, so he asked me to help him, and I sort of took over the project, to be honest. And and just the outcome was quite amazing, So I think that was the first time I sort of decided that the mechanical stuff, still do that sort of thing, and I've got a love for the finer details of the mechanical thing, but the paint and body is my
what colour was it? You remember?
It was a metallic blue, really sparkly metallic blue, so it was quite a special car actually.
Right, so that's when it started with the passion to the cars?
To go on, and then I started my own little business in a workshop. And it was in the back of a petrol garage, and I sprayed a black Vauxhall Astra in there. When I'd finished, I actually went round into the petrol garage to get a drink, and their air conditioning system had sucked all the paint in and blown it round inside the petrol garage. So obviously I didn't stay there very long, and I moved to somewhere else. But and it just went on and on from there, to be honest. And it's my passion. Absolutely.
You've mentioned the Vauxhall Astra, which is a let's say common car. There's plenty of Vauxhall Astras on the road. But when did you turn to becoming like a more classical automotive spray painting vintage cars?
Well, to be honest,
started like that, or just happened, or did you move to that?
I worked with a guy and we was just doing general repairs, this stuff, any type of vehicles, and then he used to do MGs for a guy, and so I was doing a lot of the MGs for this guy, and then I left him and come and work for the guy doing MGs. In a workshop just outside my workshop in this yard. So that was well over 30 years ago. So the classics really started then, doing the MGAs, the Cs, the Bs, and all them sort of cars. And I really love doing those, The classic car market took a little bit of a sort of a turn back then. And the guy that I was working for doing those cars decided to shut down the paint side. So I started working for this guy in the yard who ran a minibus service company. And at first I was painting the minibuses, sprinters, long wheelbase sprinters, but painting them as nice as classic cars, So basically I worked for him for nearly 20 years, looking after a fleet of minibuses, like mechanically. Still getting a lot of people asking me if I would do their paint work on their cars. And I've done a couple of jobs, I built my own rally car in that time, and painted that. And then it was actually funny, my wife worked for my next door neighbour in a workshop about 2 or 3 miles from where I lived, and he passed away, and she asked me if I could go to this workshop and collect her bits with her. So we got there, and and I walked in the workshop and I thought, all right, I quite like this. But you couldn't actually see the back wall when you walked in the door because it was full of clutter and stuff. Anyway, within a week I'd given my job up on the minibuses and moved into this workshop. No work to do or anything. All I had is my toolbox, so I took that with me. And 10 years, here I am now really. So that really went amazingly well. At the last workshop, that's when I met up with Terry Hamlin from Novol, and he took me to Poznan to the factory, to see the guys at Novol. And I sort of just fell in love with the people there and the whole classic car thing. So, it grew a lot. We've done a lot of amazing work at my last workshop.
Yeah.
Like, really good. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
I'm
right.
waffling on a bit.
That's all right, that's right. That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the Novol, the products. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, how do you think it changed over that 30 years that you've been in the painting industry? How did it change over these 30 years in terms of materials, of preparation, with the cars that you're doing?
Yeah. That's so different. It's so different now. The products are amazing, what we use compared to what we used to use. When I first started, we was using cellulose primers and stuff, and it was just horrendous. When I first workshop I started in, we had no oven, no booth. It would just paint a car where it sat. No lighting or anything. So the facilities we've got now help us do what we do no end. I remember I talked to the guys now and say, our polishing mops we used to use had one speed and it weighed so much compared to modern equipment. We'd have one spray gun do everything. A suction fed DeVilbiss generally. But so the products we've got now, especially the primers and the clear coats, just the whole system, I just
making life easier.
I couldn't imagine doing what we do without these products. I really couldn't. We have used back in the day, without mentioning names, we'd use a bit of this company and a bit from here. But then as soon as I went to Poland and went on the classic car course and got introduced to the classic car system, it was just, that was it. The switch just flipped and I've never looked back.
We strolled, before our conversation, we strolled through your garage, and I've seen that you've got a lot of Fords, especially Cosworth Fords.
Yes.
What's the story about them? Because you've mentioned that you've done quite a lot of them already. So what's the thing with the Cosworths?
My dad, going back to my dad, he was always had Fords when I was a youngster. So, and I suppose it really started me working on cars with my dad, back in the day and stuff. So the Fords thing, and when I was a youngster, 17, 18, just lots of Escorts we owned and stuff. They was just... I was just a Ford guy all the way through. You can't explain that. It's like a football team. That's just from a young age. You followed what your dad done. My dad always had a lot of Fords, so I suppose that's where they come from. And to me, Mark and Escort, Mark to Escort, Lotus Cortina, they're my love and my passion. All those early Fords. We do quite a lot of supercars here as well. They never get the same response on our social media. You post a Mark 1 Escort or something and everyone can relate to that because their dad or their aunt or their granny had one and they remember going out in it with them, And we're seeing a lot of people trying to recreate that sentiment in their older years, and they've got some dispensable income and they've decided they're going to restore an Escort or something. So
can we say that you are the UK specialist of the Ford Escorts Cosworths?
I wouldn't go that far. Look, we've got a passion for them, and I think every one of them that goes out has got a little bit of me in them somehow, whether it's a bit of skin off my knuckle or, blood, sweat and tears, because you have to put that into these cars to just satisfy the customers, and give them what they want. They're all looking for sort of perfection nowadays, and I love doing the Fords. I really love doing them, and they've got such a following in the UK. There's quite a, big scene around these cars, so that makes, it gives it a little bit of a sort of a buzz to it, and we're pretty well known through our social medias for painting these cars, which is
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask you if you're the UK specialist. I think that you are a bit. Looking at all those floors around there, it's just like he's a poor guy.
Yeah, well, look, we'll never stand up and say we're amazing. We don't do that. We just say this is.
The cars are amazing.
No, thank you, but we'd rather just say this is how we've done it. These are the products that we've used to do it, and this is the end result. I'm never going to stand up and say we're amazing because there's always someone better than you.
Yeah, there's one standing right in the next room.
Yes,
the red one, the red Ford, very special car. That's what I wanted to ask because it is a very special car. If you could tell us a little bit more about this particular
car. Okay. This belongs to a good friend of mine, Russell Lord. He's a jeweller, so his attention to detail, you can imagine, is second to none, I went and looked at the car a couple of years ago, and it was just a very genuine car. So we took it away. We had it media blasted, and we didn't get much of the car back. I think we had the quarter panels, a bit of the chassis legs and the roof, So it underwent a lot of fabrication, So it had a back panel working forward, back panel, inner rear arches, outer arches, full floor, and the whole front end, with new doors, wings, bonnet and stuff. It was a labour of love because they're always really difficult to judge, pricing a job like that, But thankfully, Russell's a good friend of mine, so it was quite easy to go through that, it definitely had quite a journey, and he's finished the build off amazingly, We was actually, Novol sent us some product to paint that car, so I think was the first people outside of Poland to use the new classic car hybrid epoxy system and the new clear coat. And it's testament to the product because it was done a couple of years ago and it just looks fresh, like it's driven out of the workshop,
Yeah. The first thing I've noticed about this car, that there's a little bit more customish or customed for the clients. It's not Ford at the end of the day.
No, there's a couple
looking like a Ford, but there's something wrong with it.
Yes.
How come that happened?
I think Russell, the early Fords were fantastic. They got a fantastic following, but we could always say this could have been a little bit better. The door winder didn't work properly and things like that. So Russell's gone to the other ends of the earth to just change a few little bits that Ford could have made better. You could buy that coat, probably wasn't even £1,000 when it was new.
Really?
No, they really weren't.
Yeah, there we go. It's common car.
Absolutely, so common. So I think Russell just wanted to make a couple of bits a little bit nicer,
Right.
And
I've seen the sign in the front. It's not Ford. It's like a turned F, looking like a Lord.
His name is Lord, so he made it say the word Lord on the bonnet and on the boot lid, which is quite a nice touch for him,
Catching.
It's catching, So we're actually taking that car to the restoration show on the Novol for Classic Car stand on the 21st of this month. So it'll be there for everyone to see if they want to come and have a look at it because it's quite a special car. In actual fact, we done another car for Russell recently, another car, but it was orange. A Mark 1 Escort like that, but with the big flared arches.
Okay.
And that car was the actual car that he met his wife in 35 years ago.
Okay.
So they had their first
He kept it for all these years, or he found it on the market?
He found it again.
Really?
Brought it back.
His car?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And,
amazing.
And someone had painted it probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and it looked really nice. But they'd used the sort of old system that we always used to, was all our body filler on bare metal, and then just primer and paint, and it had just gone rusty everywhere. So all the moisture had got in the filler and lifted the paint off. So we stripped it back to bare metal and painted that recently. That had a really good story because obviously he'd met his wife in it, so it was very special to both.
So he turned it into the colour that he originally had?
Yeah, it's gone back to that. I think it was Sebring orange range.
Okay.
So he's actually got that at home now, and he's building that car. So he was going to take that.
And his wife's driving it, or he's driving it, or he's not allowing the
I
wife to
think
drive
he'll
it?
probably drive it. But this guy, he's got about 5 or 6 Escorts. He's just bought another Escort Mexico for us to do.
You get the thing with Escorts in the UK, don't you?
Absolutely, you know, like they're so relatable, you know, they really are. I painted that car, that one in there, about 2 years ago. No, not that one, sorry, the other Mexico we painted last year. That's coming up to 1 million views on our Facebook channel,
Nice.
with people watching the video of me actually laying the colour on.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's good.
Is that the red one that got the original colour as well?
Yeah, that one is,
the-
yeah, that's sunset
so
red.
it came originally in this colour and just repainted,
That's it.
restoring the car as well.
Yeah, that's it. So that's back in its original colour.
Ah, fantastic.
So,
We've,
yes.
we've seen the other cars. You've mentioned the one that you are keeping in the garage for like 3 years now.
Yes.
What's the story about that?
So that's a Mark
That's
1.
quite a long time, isn't it?
It's a long time, it is. So it's a Mark 1 CF Bedford van, just a standard panel van. The thing about it is trying to get the parts for it is unbelievable difficult, you know, because a lot of people restore an early transit, but the parts are quite available for it, you know. There's none. There's one guy up north, a guy called Adrian, and he is the only guy in the UK that has parts, you know, for this van. And it's only when he can get the parts that we need. So we found another one, just a chassis cab that was really rust-free, and we've literally cut the whole front off of it, picked all the panels off and put it on the one we've got in the workshop. So it's sort of coming round to being going into polyester spray filler, really, you know, and I'll feel when it's into polyester, I'll feel like we've sort of beaten it a little bit, you know, it's a bit of a milestone for us. But the thing's got to run out of here, drive out of here, you know, MOT, running, driving.
Yeah, but when that's going to happen?
Well,
Well, if I would be owner of the car, I would be sitting on the phone and just like, Gavin, come on, it's been 3 years already.
Absolutely. Look, like I say to you, I'm not going to commit to a date, but it will get done. But yes, you know,
Looking forward to it.
It will be a very special thing, you know, because we're going to put as much attention into that van as we do to any of our Escorts. It does give me sleepless nights, honestly, because it's gone on too long. But
Well, it happens with the restoration.
it does sometimes, it does. But I'm sure when it's finished, apparently the Queen had a couple of those vans, and there was one restored about 5 or 6 years ago for the Queen in green. I've never seen it. I'd like to see it because I'd like to think that the one we're going to produce is probably going to be, you know, if not the best, one of the best, because like I say, there's not many of them ever get done. Where the transits, lots of people do transits.
It's going to be a green one as well?
No, just white.
Just white. And that's going to be, you mentioned that's going to be for a bakery, so any special additions to it, any special, you know, paintings, it's just going to be flat white?
I'm not sure whether they're going to have its sign written when it's finished,
all right.
but apparently, you know, I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for a friend, a third party.
Okay.
And they're saying that it will probably never turn a wheel. It will sit in their front of their office building as a bit of a display piece. You know?
Trophy.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about it, you know, because, like I say, I think it could probably be one of the best ones out there.
Right. We're going to turn a little bit personal now, if I can.
Okay.
You've got a son.
Yes.
Hey, William is his name. He's working for Novol as well.
Yeah.
Right, in the UK, he's a representative technician for the Novol.
Yeah.
How do you think if he's going to... At some point, I'm not saying tomorrow or after tomorrow, but at some point, is he ready to take your business to and like, you know, follow your lead, follow your passion, and just put in the garage through them all?
Categorically, no.
We can cut it. We can cut it. This is the case.
No, absolutely. No. William will definitely not do that. I don't think he will. Look, my William loves paint, he loves the technology, he loves spraying paint, but cars are not his passion.
Okay.
You know, and to do what we do, the cars have to be your passion. I've said it so many times in the last 5 minutes, you know. If anyone will take it forward, it will be Elizabeth, my daughter Elizabeth.
Really?
It really will, yes. Because, you know, on a
painteress.
well, not maybe
Not maybe
painting,
physically.
but behind the scenes running.
Okay.
You know, you're saying about getting to a personal level. You know, I've got 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. So as you know, my name is Pink, and my Alison's maiden name was Robertson. So if we do anything, Elizabeth and my James are identical to me, and William and Victoria.
That's a good name for the company, Pink Robertson.
Yeah. It could be.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, it was Elizabeth's idea to come up with Gavin Pink at the paint shop, you know, because I think there's so many garages get lost in, you know, like just another restoration company. But because we use my name, it's really easy for people to find us. You know, if you just Google me, I'm on Crime Watch and everything. It's a joke.
Crime Watch?
Yeah.
Let's go into that. Come on.
No.
That sounds good. Okay.
So yeah, going forward, like I say, my Elizabeth and my James, which is my youngest son, they're both identical to me in their character, where my Victoria and Elizabeth, my Victoria and William are identical to Alison. So if we ever have any competition, it's always they're the 2 teams.
It's always about
and
family,
we always cheat and they don't.
Yeah, there we go. So you've mentioned that, well, of course, your name is Pink.
Yes.
The other things that you are doing, apart from spray painting, you are preparing the blocks, like
the sanding blocks.
The sanding blocks.
Yes.
How did that start, and how did you get with the idea of getting your custom-made sanding blocks?
Yes, well, that did come at the old workshop. I was sort of I've got a bit of OCD, as you can see. I like things to be as clean and nice as, and I think it don't matter what processes you're clean, it helps you with your final bit of paint, you know. Sorry to go off tangents a minute, but, you know, when people talk about preparing a car, I see that as far as keeping your workshop clean. You know, it's all part of that preparation to get that outcome, you know. So anyway, at the last workshop, looking for a solution, you know, doing all that sand. I was actually doing the roof of a Mark II Jaguar, and the whole roof was filler from corner to corner, just the skin, and just the whole workshop. There's the car actually on the screen, but the whole roof of this car filler. So the workshop, just dust everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
So I had some Durablocks, you know, the Durablocks.
Yeah,
so I actually just sort of like bastardised one, for a bit of a word. So I drilled a hole right down the middle of it and drilled a load of holes in it and glued a pipe in the end of it and connected it to my Hoover.
Simple solutions are the best solutions, aren't they?
And hey presto, it was like, oh my God. And I actually posted a little video of that on my Facebook, and within a few minutes it had thousands of views on it. So I sort of dropped the video and I thought, oh, me and, you know, got something here. So it's been a bit of a process. Now we've gotten to a stage where they're amazing, you know. We actually have all the components produced for us, and Elizabeth builds them here in the workshop, does all the gluing and bonding and everything. So we went through a few different glues and things, but now we've got them off to a T, and they're amazing. Same thing, I couldn't imagine doing what we do without them. And we have, you know, we're doing okay. We sell quite a lot to Ireland, Australia, we've had them in America. So, you know, I always look at something, I never want to try and run before I can walk. Just slowly build something, you know, and hopefully...
The small spoons.
Absolutely, rather than trying to go, you know, mad.
But that is coming out of passion, because, you know, you're preparing something that is actually helping you to get the work done in a little bit conditions. So that's the thing with these products. They are best suited for the spray painters because it's done by the spray painter, I believe.
Yes. Well, you know, like I say, it was just that workshop full of dust. If you know, at the end of the week, without boring you to tears, you empty our bags in our Hoovers, you see how much dust there is. You know, all that dust would be in the workshop, in our lungs, and I can't stand it. My OCD, you know, I really can't stand the mess everywhere. So that was really why we developed them.
Yeah, nice.
You know,
nice. I've seen them, I've used them actually as well. So quite nice. They're looking pinkish though.
Well, we've got black ones as well. We do a black.
I like the pink one.
Yeah, we like the pink ones. Absolutely.
Quite nice.
So it's quite nice.
What's the future for the Gavin Pink at the paint shop?
At the paint shop. Well,
Because you've moved into this location, that's what I'm
Yes.
going to add some
Okay.
bits and pieces. You've
Yes.
moved to that location
Yeah.
not that far ago.
Yes.
So what you think about, making the garbage? If it's going to be a bigger one,
Well,
it will take more
yeah.
cars to do.
Okay.
What's the newest feature?
Okay, so the other bit of workshop that's in our yard where I started off doing the MGs, the guy that's in there, he does a bit of paint work. He's been in there for 10 or 15 years. He's getting old, he's getting older and older, so he won't be there for long. So eventually I'll have that bit back, I'd like to move our fabrication into that other bit of the workshop to keep it out of the paint side, because Paul likes banging and hammering and making a lot of noise, and we don't like that. So we'll put him in a quiet place, and we'll soundproof it and shut the door, and he can stay in there. But no, so I'd like to end up having the other workshops in the yard, and then I can control everything that goes on in the whole yard, we've probably got a couple of years' work booked in front of us, but it's finding the staff to come and help us do it. I've been trying now for the last year, really trying to get someone to come or a couple of guys to come work with us, but it's proving very difficult.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you at some point, because it's a similar problem, I believe, in every single market. If it's the UK, if it's Poland, if it's the France or Germany, there's no hands to work, there's no people that would like to do the job. So is there anything that you do that you are doing here to get that passion into the younger people to come to work, to just share the passion? Or
the youngsters these days, they just haven't got that, seem to have that work ethic, and I think I go on about my passion. I worked on cars when I was a kid with my dad, Kids now can't do that because their dad's car, they can't work on it. They can't service it on their driveway, so the young lad doesn't get that opportunity to set the tappets or put the points in it, So his love for a car, he's not there because his dad's car you can't work on his dad's car, So I think that's where my generation got our love and passion for working on cars. And the youngsters today will never experience that, because people don't
Hopefully they do.
Well,
having some such people as Gavin Pinks.
Yeah, maybe.
Hopefully they maybe will.
Maybe, but, we've had a few lads work with us over the last 10 years or so. And, most of them, they just think it's a long, laborious job. Or they want to walk in the door and just paint a car, which, you earn that. It takes a lot of years to get to that level. And the same thing you say to people, we just spent 500, 600, 700, 800 hours preparing that car.
There we go with the satisfaction, because it takes even 3 years to build a car.
No,
but at the end of the day, when the customer going to come and pick the car up, and it's going to stand and see, wow, what an amazing job you've done.
100%.
100%.
I totally agree with you, and that's why
just go into that job. It's a hard job, like any other. But so passionate, so rewarding.
Yes.
It is. Thank you for that.
I honestly think my best part of what we do is the handover to the customer. Because I just want their reaction. I really do.
Just putting the key in.
Absolutely.
Ignition,
just
starting. The feeling that car.
Yes, because we normally, I would hope to think that we go way beyond people's expectations of what they're going to get back. I'd like to think that we can definitely go past their expectations, and that's when they come to see their car and and a lot of things that happens with us, you forget how bad the car was when you got it, because it's been a slow process to get it to that stage, But when they see that, black and white change, and they're normally blown away by it, So, that's what I like. But like going back to the youngsters, I just don't see this industry with youngsters in it. They all want to be YouTube sensations or footballers or pop stars in the UK. Honestly,
not only in the UK, I believe.
And I think our youngsters, even my children, they've all really been spoiled by us. because we've been able to do that. You know, they've had everything they've wanted, and then when they have to come and rub a car down for 10 hours and get smothered in dust, it's just not for them. I'm really worried about the future because, like I say, we've been really
Maybe that will
trying.
come. Maybe that will come. Hopefully that will come.
I'd like to think so.
Right, so we're gonna finish at that point. Gavin, thank you very much for the conversation, and for you guys, if you would like to become a spray painters, the only place in the UK that you will get all the knowledge is right over here with the one and only Gavin being at the paint shop. So come around and get that. Or if you have a car that you would like to be like a new one, like restored, like properly restored. Again, Gavin being at the paint shop. Thank you very much for the conversation. That was absolutely pleasure. I will use a bit of time to stroll around and see that beautiful work that you are doing over here. Again, huge pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being in the Novol podcast. Gavin Pink at the paint shop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.